This 2005 Dodge Ram 2500 with a 5.9 liter diesel engine is my personal truck. But lately I've been exceeding the weight limit supposed to be hauled with this truck, even with all of the suspension upgrades that I've done, like additional springs, airbags, and additional sway bar. So in today's video, we'll be swapping in a 3500 dual rear wheel setup from a donor truck. So let's get into it on Rebuild or Revival. I'll just lift the dually bed off of my truck really quick and push it out of the way, and then we can get started on the project. All right, so basically what I'm gonna be doing is removing my bed and my rear end and installing the dually 3500 rear end, springs as well, and the dually bed, which is sitting over there. The only modification really that I'm gonna need to do is fabricate the bump stop for the overload springs. It sits on the side of the frame right around here. Here's what a factory one looks like. Everything else should be a straight bolt on. So the next thing I need to do is remove my bed. There's only a few bolts holding it on, I think maybe 6 total. Okay, so I've got this aftermarket hitch down here, and it's blocking one of the access holes to get one of the bed bolts out. There are 8, I've only got 6 out. So I need to pretty much remove this whole hitch, which is a lot of work because that bolt right there is blocking the access to get a mount off of that rail. So I'm gonna start getting into that. Whew, look at that thing. It is massive. It's the torque lift super hitch. All right, so this is that bolt. See how it's got that big plate inside of there? This hole is an access for the bolt that goes into the bed. So I'm gonna have to pull this bolt from inside. Okay, now let's get the truck bed off. Moment of truth, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. All right, there it is. Got the bed completely off. We do want to clean up this frame a little bit, but for now, we are just going to pull the truck out of the shop because at the moment, I can't close my front door because the truck is sticking out. and it can't go back because the bed is there. All right, now that we've got the bed removed, we need to start a couple of things, but what I'm gonna start on next is sandblasting and painting the rear end. And I didn't have a sandblaster, so I picked up this one from Harbor Freight, but one of these airlines is too short. So I'm gonna extend this airline just a little bit so it can reach the fitting, and we'll see if we can get this sandblaster to work. Okay, well, I was putting this thing together and trying to test it, and there was a ton of sand in there. So obviously this thing has been used and returned. This was the last one. I don't even think they are selling this model anymore, which I didn't even want the dual tank. I just wanted the single tank, but they didn't have that nowhere for 30, 40, 50 miles. Had one, so I just picked this one up. It was discounted, like I said, and now I know why it was returned. There are a couple of broken parts, like this valve, and like I said, I needed to modify this line to make it a little bit longer because it was shorter than this one and it wasn't reaching all the way. So anyways, wonder if that was leaking. I don't think so. I think it's working. I believe it was clogged with some of this sand. I don't even know if you're supposed to use this type of sand in this machine. I didn't get regular sand. I got black aluminum oxide. So this is what we'll be using. So pretty much I'm just going to try and empty out all of that sand and get it all out of there, and then start setting up so we can start sandblasting all of this stuff over here. All right, so I'm about to start sandblasting, and I was doing a lot of reading on what type of respirator you should wear. So I got one of these. It pumps fresh air into the mask and has a couple of filters. These ones are like for nuclear fallout type stuff, but I am going to modify them to work with this style. Here is the PAPR system. This is where the filters go. So basically these are just going to screw into here, tighten them down. Now we can turn it on, and it's got plenty of airflow. This is gonna work perfect. So now I need to go set up the booth. Okay, so I've got the containment set up to do sandblasting in there. I've got the rear end already set up inside. It is in there. And I've got the springs and some of the other parts over here. These are the adapters for the dually wheels for the front end, and then all of the hardware to install the rear end and springs and all of that. But when I bought the rear end with all of this other stuff, one of the springs, let's see which one, this one, is actually broken. Instead of buying new springs, because these basically came with the rear end, and he did give me a little discount because that was broken, I'm gonna get this one replaced, just this single leaf. And while they're doing that, they also replaced the bushings and all of the plastic and rubber pieces in between the springs. I went ahead and ordered some energy suspension bushings, a little bit better than factory. So I'm gonna have them replace those. I'm also gonna have them do the other one, and they're also going to sand them down and paint them. So that's gonna save me some time on these. So we won't have to blast and paint these. We'll just do all of these other hardware and then the front wheel adapters. Let's go ahead and drop these springs off and we'll come back and start sandblasting. Okay, so I've got the containment all done. I just obviously taped it up along the ceiling here and then taped it up around the floor. And then what I did is I put a couple of these zippers in, a fan on this side, and then some filters on this side. So hopefully the airflow will come through, out the filters a little bit, and keep the dust blowing this way. That's my theory. I've never sandblasted inside like this before, only inside of a cabinet. So I'm not really sure how it's gonna go. Before we start sandblasting, I'm gonna remove the calipers, the brake lines, get all of these cables lifted off of the rear end. So yeah, let's strip this rear end and start sandblasting.
Alright, just going to show you what I'm going to be wearing. I'm not sure how well you can hear me, but I've got the PAPR pumping fresh air into the mask, Tyvek, and then the blasting gloves. And this also has a hood and the boots, so we should be pretty well covered. So let's get inside the containment and we'll start blasting.
All right, so we are done sandblasting the rear end. I started to try and sandblast this gooseneck hitch too, but it was powder coated and that was not coming off very well. So we'll come back to that. But for now, we're done sandblasting the rear ends. So we just need to clean up this booth sandblasting disaster that we have going on in here so we can start prepping the truck bed frame to accept this rear end, and then we'll get everything painted in. So I'm getting ready to bring the truck into the shop, but I want to pressure wash the frame first because I am going to be painting it. So I'm just gonna pressure wash this thing real quick before bringing it into the shop. All right, we've got the truck in the shop now after it's been pressure washed. Next, we'll need to start taking down all of these rusty areas with a wire brush. But before we do that, I want to start trying to strip the paint or powder coating off of this gooseneck hitch. So let's just cover this in the stripper and we'll leave it for a while and see if it works. All right, well, I started putting it on already and I didn't hit record, but this has been sitting on here now for about 5-10 minutes maybe. And it's already starting to remove some of the powder coat. I already did the other side as well and then flipped it over. So yeah, let's just keep going. Okay, I think that's good. All right, now we're gonna jump back over to the truck and start removing the rear end and all of the suspension components, as well as the rear bumper. All right, we're out. Now I'll just continue stripping the frame so we can prep it for paint. All right, so we've got a pretty good start on cleaning up this frame to prepare it for paint. Now what I'm gonna jump over and do is start fabricating up the overload spring stops. Here's the overload springs down here. I'm gonna be using this 4" by 4" square tubing. I think it's a 1/4 inch thick. So basically I'll just fabricate what was there originally on a 3500. Here are the bump stops that I got. These are universal, made for this specific purpose. They're made by Energy Suspension and they're polyurethane. So we'll be using these. We'll fabricate the mounts, get them welded up onto the frame, and then we can continue cleaning up to paint the frame. I just want to get this done first. So let's start fabricating these mounts. All right, well, these are all good. The frame is all prepped. Now I just need to make 2 mirror images of these for the other side. Well, I didn't film that, but I did just cut one for the other side. It's a mirror image of this one. Beveled all the edges to fill it in with weld. And I'm just gonna go pop it on the other side and see how it fits. All right, now I need to drill the holes for the bump stops in each of the mounts. Maybe not the welds, but everything else. You could see some of them got really good penetration, like all of these ones on the inside. For some reason, I don't know what happened here. This was the second pass I was trying to make. First pass, I don't know. I'm gonna grind this down and make sure it's got good penetration and it's welded. But I don't think it's gonna come off. I mean, you could see the coloration there, or the discoloration, that it got good penetration. So, same with this one. So I'm not too worried about it. Some of the welds look ugly, but I think they're on there. All right, that's gonna do it for part one of the Dodge Ram 2500 single rear wheel to 3500 dually conversion. I removed the original bed, rear end, and leaf springs. Then I sandblasted the 3500 dually rear end and fabricated the 3500 overload spring pads. In the next video, I'll paint this back section of the frame and the 3500 dually rear end, then install all of the 3500 dually components onto the truck. So as always, thank you all for watching, and please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think about this conversion in the comments section. And I'll see you all in the next video.